We need it. We need it. We need it. Oxygen. It's why we breathe. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Small Business Stories. I am Dr. LL, Laurel and Mears here of Steeris, with wonderful guests every week. And this is a really exciting honor because we've got Ash Seddeek, and he is all focused on not just how you show up on stage as an executive leader and command presence and through communication drive interest in a presentation. He's going way deeper than that into meaning and how to use the platform to create and drive sustainable change. Ash, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Delal.
Well, it's always fun to get into this because you've got a tremendous list of clients and accolades behind you. And as I said, your book, Meaning, so many great reviews on there. And it is one of the other books on my list to read. Haven't read it yet, but I'll be getting to it. So, talk to us about how you made the shift to go from this isn't just about communication, this is about using a platform to create a message and an opportunity, because that's a shift that not everybody gets to.
Absolutely. And that's a great point because we realize that there is so much power and impact to the word that we are saying. And especially when someone becomes a leader, whether they start to become a manager of a small team of people or a larger organization or perhaps a multi-thousand employee organization, then we actually find that the power of their message has the impact then of activating the power that exists within each of the individuals and the teams. And then all of a sudden, similar to how we look at a sports team, sometimes we have the same set of players. But when the coach is a different one, they were the same exact players yesterday. But today there is like a whole different energy. They're so pumped up, they feel they can win, and with that confidence, all of a sudden everything changes. We see them coming to the practice with a whole lot more excitement and a whole lot more wind in their sails. And that's the kind of thing that we think about when we think about the power of leaders and the message that they deliver. Versus, let's say, I'm just going to walk into a meeting and it's just another one of 10 today, back to back meetings. So we encourage leaders to really take a moment and pause and think about those meetings, which one of them is what we would call an exponential value moment, in the sense that it has an exponential potential of really creating an incredible impact on the organization. And that's what can happen, similar to how we can see a coach going into the locker room and getting everybody fired up after a lackluster performance in the last 30 minutes. And then they walk back in and, oh my goodness, what happened? And then we realize that he was able to tap into their desire to create a whole lot more than that was happening 30 minutes ago. And it's by the power of activating that additional level of performance that we just see amazing things happen. And that's really where sometimes you wonder, why is one company in the same space, the same economic condition, doing much better? And that's the kind of thing that fascinates me as I work with leaders.
Oh, because it is all about leadership, right? I say this often.
Yeah,
If you look behind you and nobody's following you, you're not a leader.
you're
You're
not a
somebody
leader,
with a
exactly.
title, right? When I
Yeah,
say that, people's jaws drop to the floor and they're like, wait, what? That's so true. Like,
yeah.
exactly.
Yes, absolutely. Without a doubt. And that's really where if you see people knocking at your door, seeking you out, that's an indication to your point that there is followership. They're looking for guidance, they're looking for input, they value your opinion. And it's a testament to how much you've done with them.
Oh, for sure. Now, you talked about sports analogies where I think we can all identify that with it. We've seen it how many times play out in a movie, right? Where all of the underdogs, right? They're losing, and then some
Yeah.
great coach says all these words of inspiration at the halftime break, and they come out and the underdogs, win, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things I'm fascinated with, because if we're in that time of the Winter Olympics right now, and Ilya Malinin, the quad god,
Yeah.
and he had like he really right fell to earth, literally fell to the ice multiple times in the worst performance of an anticipated athlete, right, of all time in the
Wow.
Winter Olympics. So he has that to live with and work through. But on this topic of using your platform and using it to convey a message and to drive change, he's now getting more publicity and attention because he's talking about self-activation and he realizes what he did and what he didn't do. And he's not blaming everybody else and this and that happened. He's taking accountability and he's like, yeah, I just the pressure was too much. Talk about that how leaders as individuals can use it to not only motivate other people around them, but their own pathways and dig themselves out of hot spots.
I love that, and I've seen it happen back in 2008 at Cisco. The whole industry that Cisco was in was going through a lot of transformation because of the financial crisis impact. And I remember one time John Chambers, the CEO of Cisco at that time, speaking on the stage inside Cisco. And he delivered his talk at the very last minute when he's wrapping up. He literally sits at the edge of the stage and takes a few questions. And one of the people in the audience stood up and she said, John, I want to ask you a question. He says, please go ahead. And she says, how are you doing? Because of course, it basically is the whole, weight of this moment on his shoulders. How are we going to survive given the fact that most customers have decided to stop spending money? And that's going to impact the business as a whole. And what this moment showed me is the fact that a lot of the time we actually want leaders to be vulnerable at times, to tell us, you know what, I was speaking a hot game right now, but in reality, I'm just like a human being like you, and I'm actually wondering if we are even going to come through it. But you know what makes me believe that we will come through it? It's because I've seen us do it time and again. So by leveraging their own personal vulnerability and being open to open up, and I think that's where a lot of leaders, to your point, part of their growth as a leader is they are in this stage where I'm not going to show anything to anybody beyond just me at work. Whereas we want them to open up a bit more, like this, the player you mentioned, how they are talking about their own self-activation, whether or not they have done all the things that they should do. And that's part of what we would encourage leaders to do is open up a bit more, share some of the vulnerabilities, because that will show people that you are another human being like them. And that's going to hopefully increase the chances of people then starting to follow them, as you mentioned, because then they see authenticity, they see openness, they see the person is willing to say, I'm struggling at times as much as you are. And that creates a shared journey and hopefully also a shared point of success in the future as well.
You're the second guest in 2 weeks to talk about John Chambers. It's
Oh,
just it's interesting. Back in the day, a million years ago, and I was at Sun Microsystems, John Chambers, Cisco was a partner of Sun and came often
yeah,
to speak at the annual sales meetings and stuff. And yeah, he's a powerhouse. And you just go,
incredible.
yeah,
Exactly. So it was really
incredible.
good to see that contrast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, along that topic of vulnerability, I've seen many CEOs and leaders get it wrong. Specifically, again, I identify as female, but I've seen a lot of female CEOs try to go too far into vulnerability and stem from that business core where they
Mhm.
talk about things that are very emotional and
Yeah.
difficult. Oh, what has happened? My child is going through this. I've separated from my husband, these kinds of things. Is that vulnerable on the wrong side of where it needs to be?
I would agree because my of course our intention is what's the greater good. And if vulnerability is going to help us create a greater good, then we use it almost as a way for us to pivot into a broader story. Whereas if it's too much, again, everybody else is having a lot of things going on. And I think we need to be measured. That's the word I teach my daughters is definitely I want you to show love, I want you to show love and compassion, but we also need to be measured. Even when it comes to vulnerability, it has to be coming from the spirit of, is it going to help you and the people listening? Or is it about you trying to talk through it to hopefully get it to a point where it becomes mundane? So the goal is to really make use of it. That's I definitely would agree with you. If I would to coach a leader, I would say we really are interested in vulnerability as an opportunity for the greater good.
And I like that because I think that should be the definition that if you're going to expose that part of yourself or be that vulnerable, there has to be higher intention, which I really think speaks to your whole ethos and purpose behind the Executive Greatness Institute.
Yeah,
As I
absolutely.
understand it, you talk about speaking's not just a performance skill, but a responsibility. And what I'm
Yeah.
curious about is how times have changed so quickly here post pandemic. Did we flip to that point where communication is no longer a skill, but it's an ethical obligation for leaders?
I do believe people are realizing, and definitely I think during that period, people realize how much important it is to not only communicate from a business perspective, but from a human connection perspective. And I think to some extent we're losing some of that now because people are going back to what they call normal. And I'm hoping they would cherish those moments where they spend some time connecting with the employees and thinking about what is the human side of business and how are things impacting people's mental health and stress and all those different things. None of that goes away. Yes, the pandemic was a much bigger dynamic, but I think we're still dealing with a lot of anxiety and a lot of risk and a lot of stress because of the political situation, the AI impact situation. I mean, stuff continues to happen. So I think we want to invite leaders to connect with their audiences from that perspective, is looking at how are we doing as a whole and not just for the purposes of are we going to make our number or not.
I'm anxious to dig into your book, Meaning, because at least on the back blurb, you talk
Yeah.
about the whole thing, right? It's that ripple effect. You create resonance. You use your words and you use your platform to drive, right? Meaningful
Yeah.
change. I look a couple of years ago, we had crying CEO who went viral for laying off two employees, and everybody's like, get out of here. You know, there's like thousands being laid off every day, and you're laying off two,
Yeah.
and you've got all these fake tears. So, have we collectively, as leaders, realized that we need to create meaning versus manufacture emotion? Because if we do, we're going to be perceived as disingenuous or maybe even canceled. What are your thoughts on where that balance is right now?
Yeah, I think we look at this idea of communication mastery lens where in the beginning we could focus on the fact that I have a message and I'm trying to get it across. And then the second level is to think about the audience and what we think the audience is looking for. But the third level is about the mission. And the mission is that greater purpose or meaning, as we talk about in the meaning book, where you want the genuine aspect of your communication to be grounded in reminding oneself as well as our audiences of what is that greater purpose that we are here for. And depending on what company and what business or industry it might be, highly likely there is a final point of engagement that happens maybe with a patient at a healthcare company or maybe with a customer that's using an Uber drive where they're trying to get from point A to point B. So there is a greater purpose that we're doing to help humanity with that greater purpose. And the message that we're trying to tell leaders listening to us would be, as you start to think about an opportunity to speak with your audiences, pause for a second and think about what is the greater purpose. Because then all of a sudden, the nice and magical thing about it, it will actually take this leader out of their own head. Because a lot of the time, they lose their executive presence and confidence because they get so wrapped up in their own head. The greater purpose gives you that peace of mind to realize that myself as well as my audience, we're in it together. And once we get into that space, the audience is not going to look anymore at whether or not you have speech fillers or you don't have your slides or you don't have your ideas organized. They are going to focus more with you on that shared purpose, how close we are to achieving it, what do we need to do to get there. And that's really where the focus of that meaning book was about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. Because most of the time we have these three questions in our mind, and we're constantly trying to find an answer.
So, did you just give us like the entire secret where before you get on a stage or you have an opportunity, think, what's the purpose? And if you hold that as your North Star, everything's golden? Is that the
You know,
secret, Ash?
it is the secret because it puts you in a space where, oh my goodness, we're all in this together, and then therefore what I need to do, I need to be myself because the audience is going to see through. To your point, if they fake something, within a split second, the human being has been given an amazing engine to detect if someone is not being authentic. So once you come in and you say, I put together this 15 slide deck. They have been coaching me backstage to come out and talk to you. But you know what? I just want to talk to you.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden, amazing connection with the audience. Because then all of a sudden, they realize he or she is coming to talk to us. This is not about looking buttoned up or scripted or delivering a corporate message. This is a human being to a human being conversation. And that's the
Mm.
kind of transformation that I help some leaders get to where they start again to get out of their own head. Because I tell them, you need to get yourself out of the equation. If you are still in the equation, we're going to mess up.
Step aside.
Step
Let me take it
aside.
from here. Leave it to
Ex-
the professionals,
That's
right?
right. Exactly.
I want to talk about next the cost of silence. Here's the context. As I was coming in to get prepared for our podcast here today, I was thinking about, I don't even know how long it was, 20, 25 years ago, whatever it was, the Exxon Valdez spill.
Oh, yeah.
Horrible marine life, so many people, sailors, fishermen, like all kinds of people impacted economically, like just everything, right? Never mind the physiological damage. And I'll never forget the CEO at the time just had a fit of rage because of so many questions. And of course, lives were lost. I mean, it was catastrophic. And some reporter just nudged him a bit too far. And he said, I just want my life back. But yet all these
Oh.
people had already died because
Yeah.
of the spill. And so my question is, when does not speaking become more damaging than saying the wrong thing?
That's a great question. I think leaders would usually understand that, or to your point, they definitely sometimes don't realize that unless they step into the void and communicate, people start to actually make stuff up in their own mind. So if the CEO doesn't come up and speak with their audiences about what's going on, they will start thinking, oh my goodness, maybe there's an acquisition coming up. Maybe there's a merger coming up. Maybe there's a layoff coming up. And they start to fill in that void. And the advice we give to leaders is you need to know that there is a cost for the silence. It's almost like you have a TV channel and it's broadcasting, and if you don't have anything on the channel, other other programming powers are going to come in and puts their own program in there. So we want leaders definitely to realize that you have to have a level of engagement with your audience, and don't go for 45 days without speaking to them. It's really horrible that now we hear from employees, some of the people that I coach, is basically they say, I haven't had a one-on-one with my boss for 2 months. And it's just not so much fun because they are missing out on the connection with the leader, and highly likely they are at a higher level of stress and anxiety because if there is not enough contact, they are filling that void with their own assumptions. Maybe he doesn't like my work, or maybe she is not satisfied with my deliverables. I wonder if she's going to try to find somebody else to hire. It's just human nature. We end up filling the void. So definitely, I would advise leaders to watch out for the silence because it's very costly, given the fact that human nature is looking for frequent updates because that's what kind of keeps us alive. Oh, everything is good. Okay, great. I can go on for another week or two. So we have to do that ongoing touch point to tell ourselves the world is well.
Right. And if it's not,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Easy to fill
exactly.
in those gaps.
Exactly.
So, Ash, it seems to me that because everything we do is highly likely to become public consumption, right? We live in the era of always on. Everybody's got their phones, this, that. There's nothing that we can really do that can be hidden anymore.
Yeah.
And so, with that level of transparency and that level of potential visibility, it seems to me that executive leaders are getting better at executive presence, at communications, but I still see some of them having an identity gap. What are you seeing?
Um, I think the what I would say that can happen when it comes to the identity is if somebody associates so much to their role and their title versus their own ability to lead, as you mentioned early on, this idea of followership and how much they are doing to build the people around them. So as I think about all the leadership development programs I did work on, one of the main comment from leaders when we asked them what was the key difference in the transition from, let's say, an individual contributor to becoming a manager, and most of them would say is coming to the realization that it's no longer about me.
Mm.
So to your point, if someone is still thinking about their own identity and their own visibility, we would basically tell them, yes, these are important, but you know what's more important is your impact on the rest of the team. And that's the identity that we want. That's the legacy. That will be the next layer, will be what legacy are you going to leave behind? Have you been able to walk into that room and leave everybody better than they were a few minutes ago? That's the kind of impact leaders have. So I would actually then counter what you're saying by encouraging them to really see the maturity model of their own growth and their own view of their identity, to then thinking about what is the identity of the team, what is the identity of the organization, because that will be the legacy. If they can impact that, oh my goodness, that's amazing. Because then all of a sudden, even if they leave the company, just like John Chambers, even if he leaves the company, he's leaving behind a vibe and an energy that everybody, I think, is still feeding off of.
And I guess that's part of the conclusion as far as getting it done right, being aligned with your identity, being
Yeah.
aligned with the purpose, that your words will live on beyond you. Like even, your website, I saw wonderful quotes there from Steve Jobs, of course, luminary in so many regards, Sheryl Sandberg,
Yeah.
so many people, that words continue to have meaning and be adapted, right, for future situations. And so we don't realize, I think, the potential impact of what we can do.
Yeah, and I think that's where the magic is. The magic is knowing that you can have an impact. And that can, we come back to the word identity, that can really be part of that legacy that you're leaving, what kind of person you were, what impact you had, and how is it continuing to live on. Because also, if you mentor other people and you coach them, you're creating a multiplied effect through the power of your own actions. And that is unbelievable. Because then again, people will say, I used to work with so and so, and this is what I learned from him, or this is what I learned from her. And I think to us, that's just precious.
I want to dig in a bit to like greatness without ego. And we're not going to get political, I promise. You come up to the line, but we're not going there.
Yes.
That you operate and founded the Executive Greatness Institute. I see us in a world where greatness is often being confused with dominance, with
Yeah.
charisma, right? How do you get it so that your clients understand what greatness really is and they get grounded in that rather than getting wrapped up around the axle about ego and anything that's performative?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of my coaching practice is this the concept of chief excitement officers. And people come and say, "What is that?" And I basically tell them that the excitement is about the vision that you bring to the table and how you're able to help create that vision. And that's a much bigger situation than somebody just being so focused on what they are going to gain themselves. So we think about what is the future that you're trying to create. And we basically say, let's just go to that promised land. Let's stand on the top of that mountain and take in the fresh air and just look around the hill and look at all the things that your eyes can see. And we want you to have a smile on your face because you're seeing this beautiful future in comparison to the current present. And we want you to come back. And we want you to keep that smile because you walk around, talk to everybody, and they're going to ask you why the smile, why the excitement, and that's going to be your opportunity to inspire them. Things may be bleak right now, but what I want to get us focused on is yes, we need to honor the past, take stock of our present and the wins that we have achieved. But one key fundamental human desire is to feel that we're making progress. And I have thought about where we could be, and I'd love to tell you what I saw and have you even make it better with me. And then all of a sudden, we are creating a very inspired environment because even if things are not so good now, right now, we have now developed a vision for how things could be. So when we get up every morning, that's what inspires us. And that's what we need. It's an interesting dynamic. One time, my youngest daughter goes to public school, and almost every day is a struggle to kind of get her going. And then one morning, 5 a.m., she's like knocking at my door. What's going on? She's like, get up, you gotta take me to school. What's happening? Said, don't you remember my so-and-so friend? She's having this pool party and I can't wait for the school to be over. So
Oh, so cute.
she wants to go hang out with her friends. And that made me really reflect on the power of what's coming, the excitement of what's coming, and how much it creates desire in the present moment. And that's, I think, is the work of inspirational leaders. And as you mentioned, leaders who have followers. It's because they can see Dr. LL has somewhere to go. We want to go with her.
Right.
So they see
Let's
that
hope that they
future.
do. Right.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Yes, for
In
sure.
the in the context you just gave us, Ash, is inspiration synonymous with invitation?
I think it's inspiration is more synonymous with that's a much better place to be. It's sort of creating a desire for something that does not exist right now. And of course, I do also like the concept of invitation because you're making it an optional invite. This is where I see we're going, and you can definitely help me shape it further. I don't want to make this a already uh, a foregone conclusion, but you can come in and co-create that with me even more. What I've done is some of the early envisioning activities, but I want you to come and help me envision this further with me and shape it with me. And that's definitely part of what needs to happen in organizations, because if people feel that your idea of the future is mandated, that's going to create resistance. And that's where we want to come back to this idea of desire. And one of the upcoming books is a book on conviction. Again, all about desire, where you need to go through the organization and tell people what you've got in mind, and then see if you can actually help develop the same fire in them. Because once they at least come to match you at the level of desire, then there is much more likelihood that we won't have a lot of resistance. And that's the thing that happens sometimes. If they feel that it's mandated and they are screaming and yelling, it's like, I just got here, I just got seated on the couch and you ask me to get up again. So that's human nature in action, where leaders need to realize there is so much resistance power in the system. And as much as they go out and talk and as much as they go out and inspire, they are reducing the level of resistance and increasing the level of people saying yes to that invitation.
But that's why so many top-down change management efforts fail, right? Because it's thou shalt go
That
do this.
exactly.
And right? And
Yes.
I am stuck on this invitation thing because in my head, how I heard it and interpreted it is the invitation is this is a potentially better place. Trust in me, come with me,
Yeah.
and let's go to this better place. But the part of the invitation I think that's key is that I'm inviting you to make the journey more exciting,
Yeah,
more
exactly. Exactly.
wonderful, more special. You don't just
Yeah,
have to follow, you can be part of shaping and planning the journey, which I think is
absolutely.
where, like you said, where the magic really happens. And so I've kind of like, oh, note to self, stuck that in
Ab-
there.
Absolutely. And it also creates much better velocity, speed of execution. Because to your point, if we haven't done that job really well, they are gonna just keep holding you back. They grab your clothes, try to pull your arm. Let's keep her here. We don't want to go there. And that's what we see organizational resistance in action to any of those change initiatives. So definitely, as much as you can, just be aware of human nature. Human nature is, I work so hard to get to where I am now. And if you're talking about a new destination, then we need to work together. And as to your point, open up the invitation and explain how can they shape the journey even more.
Yes, which I think is a good segue for your workbook. You've got the strategic leadership planner. Maybe you can show our
Yeah,
audience, whoever's having the visual experience. Otherwise, you can describe the title so the audio
absolutely.
experience people can get it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was really inspired by what we were talking just about now, which is this idea of how leaders need to continue to communicate what the future is. And what this planner does, it gets us to actually do that on a weekly basis. We invite leaders to use the planner every Friday afternoon to sit down and think strategically, because that's the most shocking thing I heard was that a Harvard Business School study found that a lot of CEOs don't take a single day off. They don't take time. They are basically in the daily grind. And we invite everybody listening to us that when you sit down and think about the business and think what's going to come up, what are the upcoming weeks look like, the upcoming month look like, that is your best and most precious moment for you to actually impact the outcome of those weeks and months. And that's what this tool will ask you to think about what you as a leader have to work on, what your team has to work on, what do we need to work on as an organization, and how do we then create that invitation, to your point, of getting others to believe in our cause and start to move with us in the same direction. Because otherwise, we could be all going in different directions. What this does, it helps you to reiterate we have this shared purpose. Let's continue to stay aligned and make sure that the strategic backdrop for everything we're doing is connected. And that's what this book was inspired by. I was going around the country delivering a program for the American Management Association on strategic leadership. And then when I discovered this Harvard Business School study on the fact that leaders are rarely actually taking time to reflect on where the business needs to be, this ended up being part of what we are calling the seven practices of highly effective strategic leaders. And the very first one is taking time to reflect. Because if you don't take time to think, you don't really know what the opportunity might be.
No, indeed. And you talk about American Management Association. I'm also one of the faculty touring the country. I focus on
Amazing.
transitional leadership, how people go from that individual contributor, how do they get their game up to that next
Amazing.
level so that they can start
Yeah.
influencing others.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's really what then it ties to, are they actually taking enough time to think
Yeah.
about these transitions for themselves, for the organizations? Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because their head's still in, oh, gotta do, gotta do, gotta do, but they forget, gotta manage, gotta grow, right? Individually
Exactly.
and all their other people. And it's just, it's that balance that throws them off, or imbalance really is what
Yeah,
happens and where people don't make it into middle management.
exactly.
I
Exactly.
think. So, Ash, what else do you want to tell our audience as we're heading towards the end of our show?
I,
What other
I
words
would
of wisdom?
I think the main one would be to definitely do remember the impact of the word that they are saying and the timing and the way they frame it. We talked about a little bit of vulnerability can go a long way. And I agree with you. Too much vulnerability is sort of missing the point because we want to focus it on how it can become a pivot to the business objective that we want to achieve. And part of the vulnerability story is the fact that, yes, we are human beings. We're all on this planet, hopefully to make good. And we are in this business to also create good for our customers. And remembering the power of the spoken word is amazing. And that's really where we want to encourage them to remember. It's an exponential value moment when it does help you create an impact. And would encourage them also to push back on their calendar, create some of those moments, and lessen those meetings where definitely there is not so much value coming out of those meetings, and think about maybe redesigning these conversations so that you can create a space for you to deliver exponential value moment conversations.
Ooh, I love that. Now, where can people find you, Ash Seddeek, and the Executive Greatness Institute and your book, Meaning?
I think the best place would be to go to communicatewithclarity.co. That's where they would find a lot of the work that we do with leaders, whether it's one-on-one coaching, similar to the work I'm doing with people at Google, Cisco, or Uber, or some programs that we can also do for larger audiences as well.
Excellent. Now, last question. This is our signature question. There's
Sure.
absolutely zero, Ash, zero to do with executive presence and communication and brand and message. It's all about the shoes in your closet. Uh-huh, uh-huh. The question is, if we got to peek into your closet and there was a pair of footwear, be it shoes, boots, whatever else, or something in your closet, accessory, that personified who you, Ash Seddeek, are and represent that to the world, what are we looking at and why is that so you?
Oh, I see. I would say it's a sky blue shirt, and it's because I grew up on the Mediterranean. So of course, you end up basically falling in love with standing on the shore and looking at the beautiful, beautiful Mediterranean and the skies and the sun, which is something that always on my mind is, how can I free myself up so I can go there a whole lot more than I do. So now we're averaging maybe once every couple of years, but I'm trying to get to do it more annually. And now that we're doing a lot of remote work, I think I need to basically work on my own mindset that I can potentially do a lot more work by being on the Mediterranean and not in the US.
Oh, well, cheers to that. I wish you tremendous success and getting more access to Mediterranean blue because you're native
Yes.
son, right? In the special, special kind of blue. Ash, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Loved it, Dr. LL. Thank you so much for having me.
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?